Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today I've got part 3 of What If Lee Survived. If you haven't already watched parts 1 and 2, do so now using the link in the description or comments section. It's going to be very integral to know where we're at so far in this story. And speaking of, let's just jump right into the video now. So we left off season 2 with 2 endings. In one ending, Lee, Clem, and Sarah are alone, and in the other ending, Kenny is there as well. So for Kenny's ending, he is still gonna suffer the same fate as his canon counterpart. This means he gets launched out of the car while teaching Clementine how to drive. He loses all feelings in his legs, and Lee, Sarah, and Clem try to cover him. Kenny tells the three to go to save AJ, and so both Sarah and Clem would, with Lee staying behind. Kenny would tell him to get out of there, and Lee can either try to save him or listen to Kenny and run with the girls. Either way, he is eventually forced to leave Kenny behind as there is no saving him. And if anyone was upset because Lee left Jane behind last part, just imagine he didn't, because even then, Jane is still gonna commit suicide when she finds out she's pregnant. But hey, since Clementine isn't ever alone, she wouldn't lose her finger in any of these endings. She probably wouldn't even have that cool scar she gets by staying with Kenny. There's 2 extra people helping keep her safe. At some point, Lee and the girls would be forced into the same position Clementine was after some walkers attacked them. They are forced to lock themselves into the room in the woods, and they then hear Ava yelling for help, so they would let her in. Ava thanks them and says that her and her friend got separated from their group, and now they're all separated from each other too. She would tell them about the new frontier and would ask the 3 of them to join and bring their baby. Clem can either say yes or no, but Lee is skeptical either way. He wants to join, as it would be far easier for him to keep AJ and the others safe. A one-armed man and 2 young girls aren't really the best protection and care for a baby. But he doesn't want to get into any traps either. Ava then hears walkers being killed outside the door. She tells them that it must be her friend, and so she opens the door and goes out to help her. Lee tells Clem and Sarah to guard AJ, and so he goes out with his gun in hand. By the time he gets out there, the walkers were all dead, and Ava walked out toward her friend. Lee then hears a familiar voice respond as Ava moves out of his way. It was Krista. Lee's face shows a clear surprise, and Krista looks back with the same expression. Clementine then steps out to make sure they're okay, and would see Krista as well. I think at that point Lee would be down to join them. Also, if you're wondering how Krista survived, she would explain to the group later that night. Omid had been killed by the people who attacked them, but he protected her while doing so. This allowed for her to hide and use walkers to her advantage, killing the guy who killed Omid. She tried looking for Lee and Clem, but never found any luck, and instead, she ended up with the new frontier. Lee explains that this wasn't the first time a thing like this has happened. They met up with Kenny maybe a year ago. Krista asks where he was, and Lee would respond with answers based on your season 2 ending. Either Kenny went nuts and Clementine shot him, he killed a woman in their group so they left him behind, or he died protecting AJ. The group would now spend their time with the new frontier, and Lee even has enough resources to make the arm weapon Sarah had thought of before. Think of Merle's arm from the TV show. But when AJ becomes sick, there's no doubt Lee would be in on stealing the medicine. When they get caught, Krista vouches for them to stay, but David isn't having any of it. He takes AJ, and Lee really can't fight him on that, as much as he wants to. So they are forced to say goodbye to him, and Lee leaves along with Clementine and Sarah. Krista would later approach them and give the 3 some supplies and drawings from AJ. She says that she knows what it's like to lose what kept you going, but they still have each other. If she hadn't gotten separated from them, maybe she would have had that too. But they have to count their blessings, and AJ will be a lot safer with the new frontier if he does pull through. She tells them goodbye and returns back to her group. And so now we can finally jump ahead to episode 1, since we've been covering all of this flashback stuff. Lee, Clem, and Sarah would appear to save Javier. They hold him up, but wouldn't rob him, since Lee knows that isn't right. Instead, they go on to help him by taking him to Prescott. There would be no deal to take his van after, though, since they were fine living at Prescott. And so, Clementine would never have to shoot anybody, since Lee would be there to keep her calm. Javi would leave with Tripp and the others in the morning, since there would be, no tension and he wouldn't be locked up. And so, they end up saving Javi's family, and Mariana gets shot by the new frontier. This time, they are all gonna leave, as Clementine has no reason to stay behind. And so, the new frontier would later attack Prescott. Thankfully though, our group all made it out alive. They then meet up with Jesus, but Conrad is never going to flip out. Sure, Lee still told a story about the new frontier to Javi, but Conrad knows he's not going to be able to handle that many people if it gets rough. After all, it's going to be Lee, Sarah, Clementine, and then if Javi takes their side, Javi as well. So that's 4 on 1. He's not going to be able to do that. So he plays it smart and tells everyone their secret when they make it to the surface. But Lee is not going to be having them being given up, and neither will Tripp. He's been good friends with Lee for a bit, so he isn't willing to sell them out. They obviously aren't part of the New Frontier anymore, as they've spent so much time with Prescott, and they've actually been fighting the New Frontier. Anyway, they all pull up to Richmond, and David steps out to see them. He then takes Kate and Gabe and dips. Our group is now put into quarantine before David takes Javi to talk with Joan and Clint. They find out about him taking their gas, and so he and the others are all forced out of Richmond. They eventually make it to the safe place David told them to go, and David would make his return there. Lee questions what happened to AJ, and David responds that he lived. Afterward, the crew has to take on Badger, Lonnie, and Max. Because Lee and Sarah are both there, Lonnie definitely isn't going to be able to escape. There's 2 extra people. So now Lonnie is taken hostage, and Max is too if Javi spared him. And so, now they all pull up to Richmond and attempt to prove that Joan was corrupt. But Lonnie would just lie like he does in the actual game. Max would be telling the truth if he's there, but Lonnie would just say that they gave him a story to tell or they would kill him. And so with this, David would shoot Lonnie like he does in canon, and Javi and David would be taken into quarantine. Joan then returns and takes David, leading to Gabe or Kate freeing Javi. The group reconvenes in the house where they find Ava and Krista. They both agree to take them to the armory, and so they do. Javier and Gabe head out with them, and Javi would find Lee, Clem, and Sarah. They were interrogating Lingard, who just wanted to die. Lee's opinion on this would be based on whether he'd let Ben go in Season 1. If he did, then he'd say to kill Lingard, but if he didn't, then he would tell him no. Of course, it does come down to Javi's choice, and they then decide to leave. When they make it back to the house, Conrad decides to dip out like he does in the actual game, and now Javi, Kate, Gabe, Lee, Sarah, and Clementine head out to get the truck. The whole thing is going to play out the same way, and they would then pull up the next day to Joan's meeting. There she would reveal all of the people she captured. They are David, Tripp, Ava, and Krista. Joan says that she's going to kill David no matter what, but she'll let Javi spare one of the other 3. Of course, whoever you pick would then be killed instead, with Joan adding that she's actually being nice by doing this. She's sparing 2 that you didn't save, which is more than sparing the 1 that you did. And sadly, since most people will save Krista despite Javi barely knowing her, this means that Krista is going to die in most playthroughs. But anyway, Clint then says that they'll let them all go, and Javi can choose whether he shoots Joan or takes the deal. But if he takes the deal, David would kill Clint, and Lee would also kill Joan. Kate then crashes the truck, but thankfully Conrad will never die. This is because if you fail to dodge the truck, Sarah will grab Javi and pull him away instead. So now after this, the gang all regroups, with the 2 surviving people from Joan's murder being there as well. Of course, both of them are going to be a bit sour at Javi for not picking them, but they'd have to roll with it for now. If Krista survives, she's not coming with Javi and the gang. She's far too hurt after losing Omid and nearly dying after helping these people fight against her own group. And so the gang leaves with Tripp, Ava, or both if Krista is dead. If it's Tripp or Ava alone, they're both going to die like they did originally, and if it's both, they will both still die the same ways, though it would make the game suck so much worse to have both characters you save die back to back within 10 minutes. Anyway, Sarah would be able to make it across using the helicopter, as personally I don't think the weight of a teen was going to be too much for it to handle. This means that Javi is going to go too, but now Lee and Tripp are both screwed. Walkers would begin approaching, and so they both die. Just kidding. They're going to hold the walkers off while Lee chops one and covers himself in the guts, but Tripp is killed before he can cover himself. Also, if Tripp died to Joan, then the group would just cover Lee while he does this anyway, so he's still going to survive no matter what. Thankfully, now Lee is able to slip through the walkers and go back where he came. Clem and Sarah are both saddened, but the gang presses on. They make it to the garage, where Javi's fight with David would begin. Clementine would then break the fight up, and David would decide to leave. Clem really didn't have much choice in any of the flashbacks this time around, so the game transitions from Javi to Clementine as the playable character. You choose whether you want to go after David and Gabe, or save Richmond. You'd also be making sure Lee is okay if you choose the second choice. As for Sarah, she would go to save Richmond if both Clem and Javi go after Gabe. This is because there are only 2 seats on the motorcycle. But if only one person or nobody does, she would ask Clem what she should do, and Clem can say which one. So now, let's get into the interesting part, the endings of A New Frontier. Ending number 1. Javi, Clem, and Sarah all go save Richmond. Kate survives, and the gang would reunite with Lee and Jesus. Javi would then go with Kate to find Gabe bitten and put him down. They'd also bury David's dog tags, so in this ending, both Gabe and David die, but Kate survives. Ending number 2, only one person goes after Gabe, whether it be Javi, Sarah, or Clem. Richmond will be saved, with Kate surviving and David dying. Additionally, if Sarah was the one to save Gabe, his crush would go from Clem to her instead. And so, now Gabe and Kate are both alive. Ending number 3, Clem and Sarah go after Gabe and David. Both David and Gabe survive in this ending, but since Javi didn't go, this means he wouldn't ask David to return, so David won't come back to Richmond. But Kate survives too, so in this ending all 3 of them survive, but David isn't coming back, so he's just gone. Ending number 4, Javi goes to save Gabe along with either Clem or Sarah. This one is going to have David and Gabe survive as well, with Javi choosing whether David comes back. Kate does die though, unfortunately. And lastly, ending number 5 is basically just the last ending, but with Krista alive. Since Krista and Clem/Sarah would be there, they would be more than enough to save Kate. So after counting it out, it means that Kate survives in 4 out of 5 endings, Gabe survives in 4 as well, and David survives in 3, but he can only return to Richmond in 2. Also, Krista has the potential to survive in all 5 endings if Joan killed someone other than her. Plus, Conrad also survives the whole story no matter what because he was never at odds with the group. If Krista survived, she would approach Javi saying that she forgives him for choosing to let her die. She understands that he was in a tough position, and she apologizes for him losing whoever he lost along the way. She would also tell Lee that she couldn't come with him to find AJ, as she needed to take her time to make things right. She was going to better her own mental health, and also step up to take Richmond in the right direction. It's what Ava would have wanted. Lee accepts this, and he, Clem, and Sarah all head out on the road to find AJ. But that's where we're going to leave off for now. We've managed to cover all of A New Frontier in just one part, and so that sets us up perfectly for Season 4. I'm also really happy with the changes in this one. Having Krista return was cool and made for some interesting character development, plus a new ending. But yeah, that's going to be it for now, guys, so I hope you all enjoyed it. But as always, tell me if you liked this part, tell me what you think will happen next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.